everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Gameable Audio. This is episode 16, and I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström. Today I have a very special guest because it's going to be very interesting to talk a little bit more where he is, where he comes from, and kind of where he's going. So a big welcome to Francesco D'Agostino. Hello!
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Doing great on this Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Don't start grabbing my IP address.
I think when this releases, it's kind of late, right?
Probably.
Let's hope so, at least.
Hey, starving musicians, we got to put our name out there somehow. Yeah, IP definitely. Address, gateway address, subnet mask, everything.
That's how it starts, like, oh, he has a leak. And everybody's like, oh, it's the best soundtrack ever. And it's not even released yet. No, but...
time to dox him.
Yeah, exactly.
Dox him.
No, but it's going to be interesting to talk a little bit about who you are. I actually don't know a lot about you. I found you a little bit on, well, now it's called X. I kind of hate it, but on Twitter, I will still call it that. And we had a little bit of a conversation back and forth, talking a little bit about that you were interested in joining in on the podcast, and I was super interested in having you here. Listening through what you have on your homepage and your portfolio was super interesting as well. Some of these, you have 2 projects that we're going to talk a little bit more specific about during the episode. But let's start actually from the beginning. Who the hell are you?
Yeah, who the hell am I? Well, if you haven't heard already, my name is Francesco D'Agostino. I am, if you can't tell by now, I was pretty much raised in an American-Italian family. Born and raised in Naples, Florida. Not Naples, Italy. But I just, at a very young age, the first thing that got me into music was just playing Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii. Yeah. But my first console being the GameCube, right?
Yeah.
And, Smash Brothers Melee, I think, was like along with that and Luigi's Mansion.
Those are classics.
But it had to do something with Melee's music, the orchestral, epic orchestra that just drawed me in. Draw me into that,
usually orchestra, that type of epicness. You usually hear that in kind of RPG style, right? Am I?
Yeah. That's probably why it's a lot of people, when they listen to my work, it's like, whoa, do you want to work for RPG games? Right? And I'm like, and I don't play one lick of RPGs. Maybe the closest is Pokemon, but I am not kidding. I play a lot of more action games, I mean, goodness. I mean, you already heard me already. I'm a Smash player. I'm starting to pick up Street Fighter though. Street Fighter 6 is pretty nice, not modern controls. Anyway, but not to get too sidetracked, but it was games like Super Mario Galaxy when Nintendo first dipped their toes into orchestral music with Mahito Yokota on the stage, with Mario Galaxy, as well as, Skyward Sword, Halo music, and then, of course, Shovel Knight. And all these games were released at, the impressionable age of preteen years. I think that has part to do with it. But I don't know. That's what just kind of dragged me into the world of, video game music.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you kind of got into it a little bit later than some other people as well. You're a little bit younger than me, I guess, then. But did you have any previous instrument interest or something like that prior to listening to video game music and feeling like, hey, I want to do this, or I feel like I want to have this kind of insert in music?
Yeah. If I remember, the best memory I have of when I was a kid was, I don't know what called me to pick up trumpet at 10 years old. Not middle school. Okay, this was 10 years old. I just decided I want to do trumpet.
Yeah.
And take trumpet lessons. Then a couple years after that, I kind of forget why or how, but that was like, wow, the drum set looks pretty cool. I like to bang on things.
Yeah.
So I picked those up. And then fast forward to like what? Make a long story short, in 8th grade, very specific here, physics experiment with wave frequencies. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was like my dad was helping me out. He doesn't know guitar that well, but he was just plucking strings on a guitar with his tuner. And I was just sitting there writing down the notes on paper. And he's like, wait, how are you picking this up with your ear? He's like, that's insane. And for the record, my dad being a doctor, my mother being a nurse, I don't know how I came into music. But lo and behold, we did research and figured out there's a thing called perfect pitch.
Yeah.
And people might look at that as a brag thing, but I think your writing process is completely different when you have perfect pitch.
Yeah.
You know? I think more tonally. It's very challenging to think more of atonality. And like, I don't know, weird Schoenberg works and stuff like that, if you're thinking more classical realm.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like, okay, I have an ear for music. I could play more than one instrument. I'm gonna pursue my talents this way. And so then I picked up piano and then just took that to college with me. So I I went to Ave Maria University, which is a local liberal arts college. And I studied a music major there. Of course, very small music department. But I still got the education nonetheless. I mean, my composition teacher and mentor also hosted like orchestration class for like a semester. I fell in love with that. But I focused in composition and piano performance to get better at the piano.
Yeah.
And then I would, right after university, get my master's degree from Berklee College of Music. And saving like half the tuition compared to their study abroad program in Spain.
Yeah.
Their online program just opened up for masters in film scoring, and it was half the cost. So I'm like, and I could do it in 1 year. I had to do it. So I took that and learned a lot more in, just the basic fundies. If you're ever going to get into music, orchestral recording, notation, being a copyist for all the individual players in an orchestra. And we got to do remote recordings and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it was really cool. I think it was a new venture for the school.
Yeah.
And being the oldest brother out of like 4 other brothers, no sisters, I was a guinea pig, so I was born naturally to be like the pioneer of this film scoring class online, by the way.
But how did it feel to be so early on the ball, working with something so new to everything surrounding the school and education there then?
It felt pretty normal to me.
Yeah.
Because I experienced like all forms of schooling. I was at a private Catholic school for a little while up until 4th grade.
Okay.
And then I did public school all through middle school. Yep. Great time to go into public school. Ugh.
Definitely.
But then, then we just, through high school, I was homeschooled. So it was like I had a good blend. And, just those 4 years of just high school training, I was pretty much prepared. I was way more excited to just get in and delve in like 6 hours a day of just constant studying in that class. So it just felt natural to me.
That's awesome. Were there any possibility to have like extra classes and so on while you were doing these studies, or were they like 9 to 5 kind of school thing, like having a job?
Well, I will speak from experience. I did pick up a job. Mind you, this master's was during the great year of 2020. And we were still able to trudge through while the whole world shut down just because it was online. That was a huge blessing. I was very fortunate to do that. But I also juggled like a school teaching job as a music teacher while so imagine this, right? You're in the music classroom. Okay, this is like K through 8. It was just a school. I had to pick up a job just to at least, pay the bills, something to get started. So I had to juggle, lesson planning. So like preparing for like, how do I deal with kindergarten? How do I deal with third, make ideas for that? While at the same time sitting in that room with my laptop, just reading the material for the day. And then I'd have to go home and man, like juggling, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's totally possible to juggle both of that. I was already halfway through my master's anyway. So a lot of the orchestral stuff was mostly done.
Yeah.
But I had to sit in the classroom, like after, like while Carline was going on, and I had to sit for the orchestral recording while sitting in the classroom on my laptop. And mind you, these recordings were done overseas in Budapest for like 2 of our tracks, which we're not going to talk about today. But one of them, Final Chase, got picked up by an indie film director that's trying to get in the movie industry himself. Okay. And he wanted to use that for one of his movies. So I'm going to be working on movies, hopefully. Fingers crossed. We're just waiting for investors. And then the other one was, like more jazz orchestral. I think I blame some Henry Mancini on that one. Just for the amount of times that we watched like the Peter Sellers Pink Panther. So.
Awesome.
And that's what I got of it, but other people called it was from The Spy Who Shagged Me kind of thing.
Could be.
Could be,
Could be. No, but in consideration to having education and interest early on, etc., how do you feel like when we're looking at you as a young composer here? Do you feel like you have more interest in making a specific genre, or do you feel like dipping your toes into multiple genres, challenging yourself, or do you feel like you're very confident in going into multiple kind of genres, etc., when you're so young?
This is a great question for anyone that's getting in the gaming industry, by the way, right? Would you prefer to stick to one specific genre or multiple? Yep. And the greatest answer that you could get in any industry is, it depends. Because then you just go on, right?
Yep.
To think more logically, it's whatever the job calls for at hand. Because the biggest thing as a musician, when you are tasked to write music for a specific song, any form of media, it must serve the project at hand, right?
Definitely.
So, I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd. I used to be when I was a kid. Before they got big franchised by the big Disney. But, but just, yeah, I know. I'm trying to be clean here, Chris. Child friendly. But anyway, Star Wars title screen, right? Imagine that title screen without John Williams music, right?
It is hard today.
You take very difficult to do.
Yes.
Mind you, fun fact, that was at a point in time where everybody was tired of the orchestra. So you can thank John Williams for bringing the orchestra back into
making it hip.
Films, making it hip again, right?
Yeah.
It was lost to the 2 world wars, the art of the orchestra. So,
but now
cool
it's
book, by the way.
Oh, yeah, didn't know about that one.
The War on Music. The War on Music. I need to get it on Amazon. It talks about that. But not to get too sidetracked, right? It depends on the project.
Yep. And
whoever you get picked up by. Because we're going to look at in a little bit. One of them was supposed to be Metroidvania. Right? But he wanted more kind of like an epic orchestral style.
Yeah.
Another one was that was just a chiptune project that I made on my own. We'll get into that a little bit more because I wanted to learn more of like the chiptune genre side of things.
Yeah.
And sampling and synthesis and all that kind of stuff. But my strength is in orchestral. So as a young composer right now, I have not had a ton of projects that utilize actually both. Because I mean, this is a very general answer. Yes. Most of the industry is hybrid.
It definitely is.
to have best of both worlds in orchestral and or chiptune or sampling and stuff like that is, I think, is very beneficial when you want to have hands in multiple pots until you land a job somewhere with either a big production company or just a small indie company, and you just work from there. You basically define by the job at that point.
Yep. No, but I think that is, yet again, even though it's a more general answer, I think it's a good answer because that kind of proves the point that I'm trying to make here when it comes to young composers. What is the thought process as well, trying to get your first steps into the industry, no matter if it's video game music or if it's for movies and films. Or even series in this sense. So I think it's a great segue now that we kind of move on and look into the first track of the week. What do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Feels good, right?
Yeah, sure. So which first track?
So the first track we're going to listen to today is a heartbreaking loss from your RPG Symphonic, the Orchestral Music Pack Volume 1. There we have it, folks, a heartbreaking loss. And this is from the RPG Symphonic Orchestral Music Pack Volume 1. And do correct me, Francesco, if I am wrong here, but from what I understand, this is kind of your own kind of RPG soundtrack that you're selling out, and people can utilize this into their own work when they're making, of course, an RPG game in this case, most likely.
Correct, yeah. So I organized this into 9 separate tracks, and I have this posted on several game websites, like, the biggest one being Unity Asset Store, where it's just 9 tracks where they're loopable, and you could just have them as a single played track, right? So Heartbreaking Loss is one of those 9, and to be honest, it's a collection of works that I've had that were just orchestral, whatever just came out. Some of them were actually projects from the Crypts and Creepers project, which they're unused tracks, or they might be used a little bit later, we'll see. But it's still my own work.
Yep.
And I posted it as RPG Symphonic, where it's royalty free and people can use it for other stuff. Like Mushroom Throne Room could be just any throne room, really. Yeah, I just named it that way, and you could use it as like a template, or a temp score, as we call it in the industry, where you just use it as a sample idea. But then if they want something more original, then whoever's tasked to write the music can create kind of that style, but in their own character, different melody, instrumentation, etc.
I see. But considering when you started up this kind of project, did you know from a fact in the beginning that you wanted to make like a music pack, or was this something that kind of grew over time? That I have a couple of tracks here that would be nice. They kind of fit together.
Yeah, the second one, the second thought, because the more you write, the more all those files are just going to pile up. So first of all, get a backup drive. You're going to need it because it will fill up. And the biggest thing is that they're just sitting there,
Yeah.
right? So it just occurred to me one day, right? How can I best utilize this into the industry so that I, get noticed, right?
Yeah.
So I organized it as a symphonic orchestral pack,
Yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was I think Chris Mellon. I'm probably getting his name mixed up, but let me see if I can. Hold on.
Is it Stephen
I'm
Mellon
looking
you're
it up.
referring
Yeah,
to?
Stephen Mellon. Yeah.
That I've interviewed
That he
prior.
was. Yeah, great. He had a great video just talking about how you can bundle up your unused tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So if what you could do is you take a lot of tracks that you have that are unused and finish them up and transform them in a way that they're a single track and loopable, and then you could just pack them as music packs, right? So you can have an RPG symphonic pack. You can have a chiptune pack, right? And you could it's a decent I guess side hustle way to just make money making royalty free music.
Yeah,
it's definitely one way to get your stuff out there with a Unity Asset Store. I think it was Itch.io was the other one.
Yeah, Itch.io is also a great way to just get out to people that work on smaller projects as well, indie developers, so to speak.
Right. And I'm forgetting the other website. I posted to 3 websites. I'm gonna.
And what do you feel about because when we usually talk about the game industry, we have a lot of games that are released on a daily basis. I mean, we're talking about, if we're calculating together with the mobile industry, we're having every 11 a second we have a new release. Considering how many composers we have in the world, there's still a lot of composers out there. A lot of people are able to release work, etc. How do you feel about when you release your work royalty free and people can download it? Do you feel like you get the response, or is it still hard to kind of get out there when you release music packs like this one?
Well, one big mindset that can hurt any artist is staring at numbers. Right? It's the hardest thing to do and fall into that trap when you're an artist. It's like, am I getting noticed? Right? And it's human. It's a human element for us because we want to connect. We want to network with people. And like right now, as far as I've seen, I haven't checked in like a couple months, but yeah, this pack doesn't have any numbers, right? Because this industry, it exploded with, the innovation of technology, right? Anyone can have a music studio in the palm of their hand. They just save up a couple $100 and they just whip up FL Studio and they could just start sampling and start creating and just picking it up firsthand,
Exactly.
I decided to take the more academic route because, I was fortunate enough to pursue a university career like that. But when it comes to that, you can't be stuck in that mindset. And you're speaking to a musician right now who he's on that biometric cycle spectrum where it's like, okay, I'm just going to create and connect and just work as much as I can every day and just have that schedule, right?
That is the most important part, definitely.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is to avoid the mindset is always have just a schedule of like 2 or 3 things that you're going to do, right? So my daily schedule in the morning, I just write down 3 things, right? So I'll just write create, and it could be whatever I'm working on, right? Don't get into specifics or you'll overthink it, right? So create, right? On the side, I do do some like, meme videos just because I have some funny footage from like, gameplay and whatever.
Yeah.
Even though like making videos on Smash Ultimate sort of dead. I don't know if I kept pushing more into it, I could get a following.
Yeah.
But I did a video on Mario Strikers when it was hot, and big number go up, 35k views was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's a great game, just saying.
It's, it's decent. The older games were better. They had more content. Man. I don't know, man. It doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, but going from that, right? So I could be creating a video. Mm-hmm. Maybe, one in the works is maybe I just try a documentary or like I wouldn't say a vlog necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's my next thought process was like, I've been thinking about, right? I've been reading up economics lately and just talking about like the value of a product, right?
Yes.
Why would someone why did I invest in a new MacBook when I could have probably just invested in a new PC, right? What's the return of investment on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would I be having fun buying the next Call of Duty next year with the newest graphics card and waste more hours into that game, which I barely play, by the way?
Yeah.
I only play with just my friends sometimes here and there for a game that dies in a year until the next one? Or do I invest in a MacBook where I could create more and it puts more towards my career, right? So yeah, back to the schedule thing, right? So you just have like 2 or 3 things that you create or practice, like practice music, and then just read. Spend some time reading.
Yeah. And I think this is very important points as well that you're pointing out here. First of all, you need to create. Creation is something that is a skill itself. Of course, it's easy just to create, but to create something that kind of sticks, now that's a skill. Mm-hmm. And keep practicing and practicing and practicing is something we always notice in people that become famous in the end. It's rarely you hear this, oh, I wasn't natural, oh, I barely did anything, and then I released a song and I got world famous. You don't hear these kind of stories. Always in the background is always somebody that put endless and endless of hours into practicing their vocal cords or pushing the keys on a piano or banging that string. So I think it's just super important of these points that you're pointing out here. And I really do agree with these, and yeah, I think it's important that you say it as well. That's why it's interesting for me to point these questions out as well, showing people your mindset. Mm-hmm.
And don't forget exercise. Morning is deeply important. Your breakfast is important. Mm-hmm. Your prayer is important. Religiously, I am, Catholic Christian. So I take my prayer every morning, and that just helps me beat the crap out of the day.
Yeah.
You just get your exercise in, you get your prayer in, you get your breakfast, and then you're ready to kick butt. Otherwise, you're not going to get those tasks done.
Yeah.
Right? And then you'll just spend the whole day regretting, man, I wish I had more time. And then you have all those intrusive thoughts where it's just I wish I had more time for this, wish I had more time for that. Yeah. And then it starts beating you up. Yeah.
It usually comes down to getting routines in, and in the end, having the priorities that you that makes you happier in the end. Of course, if you become a better composer, of course it will be a better career for you. Of course, it will hopefully bring more happiness for you, because this is something you strive for. But if you put all these hours in and you got nothing in the end to show for it, of course you're going to be sad in the end. But definitely, if you put those hours in, it will show. That is the most interesting part.
And I think to close that question that you said, right? Mm-hmm. It's you never, ever put the focus on the numbers.
Yeah.
Here's what 3 words you need to put is, trust the process. Have fun in the process, right? It's, if you focus on, creating, right? You, in the moment, you focus on that present moment that you're really focusing on that time, right? Even though if you don't feel like it, don't let your intrusive thoughts in. You just do it. Just go and do it and enjoy the process that way. You put your thoughts into the process when you're writing, whether you're reading, whether you're working out, right? That way, when you look back, right, at the end of your day, and you sit there like, all right, I got my tasks done today. Now I could go rest. Now I could go play games, and the next day will come, right? Plan for the next day. Do the same thing, right? If you focus on the process, the numbers will come.
Yes.
And this is something that I still struggle with. Nobody's perfect. It's not like we're robots 100% go and trust the process. Trust the intrusive thoughts can win, but you just got to know when to pick back up.
Exactly. No, we all have harder days where we feel like, well, life is shit. And as I said, we need to find those where you can have those pick-me-ups, and you need to kind of be able to find those situations where okay, I don't have inspiration today. What do I do instead? Should I just sit and try to pry and poke all the time to try and get that inspiration, or should I just go out for a walk? Maybe sit down and read something. Do you have anything when you feel like, okay, I'm not being productive today? I can't really focus on something. Do you have anything to break your own kind of process, and you feel like, okay, this usually works for me?
Yeah. There's a plan B when you get something like that. It's usually in the process when I have nothing to work on.
Yeah.
A composer's greatest fear is like, what do I write?
Yeah.
When you have writer's block like that. Even the greats, like Beethoven, would just go on long walks, right? When he didn't think of anything. And you just go on long walks when you just couldn't come up with a new symphony or a new sonata that he was working on.
Yeah.
Well, I would do it too, right? I'm very active, right? Just learn something new, right?
Yeah.
Pick up a book, read something new, research on something. I'm really trying my hardest to do computer science, because I think that's something I missed out on. Maybe it was just the generation, but also the time spent, studying the crap out of music theory and not so much anything else, right?
And considering that you want to get into video game music, I think going into computer science can be great as well, because looking at composers that work either in-house or sometimes even on rare occasions with people that work remotely, they usually need to, or they want to be close into working with implementation into the game as well.
Exactly.
In that sense, you can kind of work your music a little bit better towards the products as well. Making sure that, hey, this is the music. You don't need to wait for anybody. You implement it, you can play the game, and it's like, oh, it fits. Instead of waiting and then you get it back and they say, okay, it does not fit. You need to work this and this and that. And that can kind of be a little bit discomfort a little bit between the composers and the developers itself. So I would say having that kind of skill when you're interested in working with video games is something that is a huge plus.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I am looking for some jobs, just for a little extra cash, just so you know, I've built up a practice with my old drum teacher now, just being a private teacher, working 6 days a week during after school hours. So, I'm getting all my creative work in the morning done. And then in the afternoon, I just go to the studio and teach.
Yeah.
In the evening. Which is, when it's school season, it's very nice, it's very productive. But also, trying to pick up other stuff, like, I'm trying to do computer science. I know Harvard has some, free course that's self-paced that you could just sit and teach.
Okay.
There was Learn Arena, which is, a startup, program that teaches, a lot of, classical philosophy, neuroscience, I picked up Principles of Economics and Intro to Python from there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, learning, basic code and just understanding how that all works, I get the general scope, right?
Definitely.
But to be even more specific in the music industry, middleware, like Fmod and WWise.
Yes.
I have zero experience in. absolute zero.
And that could be a hassle getting into as well when
extremely,
you get to further.
Yeah. Extremely. It's always been on the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. It's going to be something I'd like to pick up next.
Yeah.
But
and more and more of these kind of middleware is coming in as well. We're looking at like a software here in Sweden called Elias, which more of a dynamic kind of program where everything that happens within a game, even if you're in a specific area, if your character has low HP, the music kind of synergizes with it. So you instead of utilizing a track, it's like, oh, this is how it's going to sound. You're basically making layers, and you're putting those layers into the program, working from there. So there's a lot of things going on within music production within video games as well, just considering that specific software. Of course, there are a lot of other things in this, and I know a lot of people and composers that kind of work with other implementations in order to make audio a little bit easier within video games. So it's a lot of things going on, and I would say it's kind of hard for a new composer to have like, oh, I need to learn this. There are not really that many standards within development, so that's the hardest thing. Even if you learn VWise or if you learn Fmod, the first company you get to know, you might not even work with any of them. So it can be kind of hard from that. And how does it feel for you when you know there's so many things going on and you might not even heard about maybe half of them, for example? Does that scare you a bit, or?
Not really. Not really. I mean, I could pick it up on my own, but I think the other half is missing, right? You don't have a project due. You don't have a deadline or anything, right? I think just from the way I am and how I work is I am hardworking, but I'm also like easygoing. I am able to learn stuff like really hands-on. If you give me something and you just teach me from like the bottom up, I will be able to pick it up.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to self-teach. I think that's the con that you get out of it, right? You don't have other co-workers or classmates to work off of and actually learn stuff. You don't have really someone experienced in the industry, right? So when it comes to middleware like that, just wait until you get your big break.
Yeah.
I think you will be able to learn middleware and it'll come naturally to you once you're assigned like something, even if it's like entry level, I think, hopefully. I mean, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter doesn't post that stuff, but once you get your big break, focus on your music creation first. You don't want that to be, ruined at all. That's your biggest product. That's your biggest selling point. Yeah. That's what makes you. That's what makes Francesco. That's what makes Chris,
Yep.
Right? So focus on that primarily, and then, learning middleware will come later once you've landed that job. That's the kind of mindset I put when it comes to middleware.
Yeah.
So I'm not scared by it at all. Not one chance.
Awesome.
I'm actually on the side of, please, I want to learn Fmod or WWise or whatever the heck you're using.
Yeah. No,
because then I could just use it for any other project on that.
Definitely.
I could just walk in and say, "Oh, I know WWise. I got this," because of your experience from another company that you worked with.
Exactly. No, and also we've been listening and having this track in the background, A Heartbreaking Loss. It's very emotional. I really adore this one. It was one of the more emotional songs that you had in this RPG Symphonic pack. And the next song we're going to listen to, it has some similarities to it, but we can feel the vibe in the next song that it's a little bit happier as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to kind of dive into the next song if you feel like, hey, let's go for the next song.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good.
I mean, we didn't get to talk about Heartbreaking Loss, but let's
I
keep
know.
the upbeat mood, right?
Yeah. I think we
Anyway.
just had a super interesting conversation, and it feels like if I'm not if I'm not setting stop here, we're gonna just continue talking for about 20 30 minutes.
Yeah, it sounds good. I know we're on the clock.
We can definitely break this up a little bit more. So
Yeah, it sounds good.
Let's step into the next track. So this is from the Creepers and what was it? Creepers and
Crypts and Creepers, yeah.
yeah, and this is the Artisan Agora. There we have it, Artisan Agora, and I really adore this one. Like in comparison to a Heartbreaking Loss was more emotional. This one, even though it is a slow track, we can still feel some sort of happiness through it. That's what I kind of liked about it, and just thinking about the name of the song, I don't think it has any kind of relation to it or anything, but for me, when I'm reading the name of the track, Artisan Agora, I'm just thinking about a gardener to some extent. Agora, I usually think about the plant, the mandragora or mandragora, that people usually like in fantasy games and so on. Usually like one of those whip-lashing, man-eating plants. But when I'm thinking about Artisan Agora, I'm thinking about a gardener, like the artist gardener, kind of. So please dive a little bit deeper in this track. You said something interesting while we were listening to this. So definitely dig a little deeper on this one. So take it away.
Yeah. So first things first. If just to make a brief summary, because we kind of forgot to talk about Heartbreaking Loss, but to make it really quick, I think I noticed a lot of my inspirations, come from video game music, right? Mm-hmm. This one, Heartbreaking Loss in particular, kind of has the same key as Never Forget from Halo 3.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But it has its own style, right? That it's supposed to be like I guess a game over kind of screen that I was thinking of, right? Anyway, but moving from that, Artisan and Agora, you're thinking more plant-like and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Well, in actuality, it was supposed to be for like this slime world with like slime people, and it's like the central hub for the slime people of the Agura, and that's like the main hub theme for it was a slime showcase where people were posting like, creatures and NPCs and the entire town of the slimes.
Yeah, so it's kind of a town theme then.
Yes, it's a town theme. And that one, it was playing a lot with like a lot of very long, wet kind of pads. And of course, I think I just started falling in love with bongos, even though I'm 0% Latin. I don't know what it is, man, but just the bongos are really... They're cool. They're really cool. But I added those in, some guitars, and both of these songs were kind of my early stage of figuring out like logic and how to make sample sound a little more natural versus a lot of MIDI. I also had some help with like percussion on this one.
Okay.
With like the tambourine. It was a percussion loop made by someone in the Crips and Creepers community. The name escapes me, but oh man, shout outs to that guy.
Yeah.
Shout outs to him.
Yeah, definitely. If you're listening, shout outs.
They're listening. Mind you, it was 2 years ago, and it's been a while since I've, jumped back in because there's so many hands on this project now that I feel like after writing like 2 or 3 songs, especially the Steam Train Victory, I feel like I've done my part. But if anyone wants some more big orchestral stuff, they know who to hit up.
Yep.
I check in here and there, but a lot of it seems like there's a ton of hands on already.
Okay.
So, yeah, Artisan Agura. You have wet pads and synths, a nice warm guitar, and an actual audio recording. I had an accordion lying around, just a small honer, and that was me just soloing and figuring out how the accordion works, But since I am a very beginner at accordion, I just recorded the chords separate, and I just soloed the keyboard myself. That with the one, that was really cool. I think that was the part that was... I think that was more nostalgic kind of thing, because I remember just working on that. But it feels like it 5 years ago.
Yeah, time
so long ago.
Moves fast though. But
I know.
Working in that kind of sense, like you can't do larger takes on an accordion, so you kind of individually took each and every chord and worked from the keyboard from that point. Did you feel like it was something that kind of worked for you, or did you feel like this is kind of like how everybody's doing it? What's your take on working like you do?
On working like I do? To be honest, for someone who has not played a lot of RPG kind of games, I know town themes when I hear them.
Yeah.
I've heard them before. Maybe it's just, surfing through YouTube or just listening to background music and stuff. I'm not sure. I mean, but how I approached it, I was like, I don't know. Accordion would sound pretty cool. It's a folk instrument, It has, like, the folk genre of music is very, like, they have all, like, hymns and tunes that are very, familial, very cultural, And I think to just bring that kind of ambiance into this track just helps give that eminence of a town, a hub, where you can just talk to people, you can trade, and progress through the RPG elements that they're working on in this game. And it's a very kind of slow point. It's very positive. It's bright. Yeah. It's not like the final level or anything. Which that's where you get more gritty and you have more like atonal synths, depending on whatever it is you're working on. So
working more with orchestral as well. You kind of work still a lot with kind of layers and so on, but layers in form of a lot of different instruments and so on. What's the hardest part with working orchestral? Trying to match up all these layers. What's the hardest part about it? Or maybe it's just easy for you.
Elaborate more.
So considering this, for me, when I'm listening to people working with music, I really become super confused. I have a really hard time listening to the whole picture. I usually just focus on one thing, and I don't really know how the other pieces kind of work together. But then when I listen to a final track, it just sounds great, and it's magic to me, to be honest. And for me, listening to orchestral, I really love and adore everything that orchestral kind of do. It becomes really epic. It becomes like the classic RPG, because epic kind of is the main key for RPG games. And since you kind of go into the orchestral part from the beginning, of course, you have some background in it during the studies, but still working with all these different layers, which from my end is very hard. From that point of view, how does it feel for you, understanding how layers work and how they fit?
Yeah, it's actually quite similar. You're just slapping different instruments on it. Mm-hmm. I think just the mere approach of writing in a DAW, just treating orchestral instruments just like any other instrument, you know? I mean, of course, you do have to have some background, right? You have to know what a staccato instrument, right? A staccato articulation is compared to, like, smooth legato, right? And all the other crazy ones.
And for me, I have no idea
like
what
flautando.
is what.
Yeah, right? Or a portamento slide. But it's quite easy just translating over. I think the challenge is when it comes to electronic music, you're basically creating your own instrument from the ground up. I think that's a lot of creative energies are put into creating like wavetable synthesis or FM synthesis, right? Sometimes a lot of creative energy is just put into like trackers. I have no idea how to use them, but I'm so fascinated by that. And people just pick that up just with their bare hands. It's so cool. Like, Definitely. It all makes sense to me just from a visual perspective, but if I go to a tracker like that, I'm just going to be like, my finger typing is literally going to go from the standard QWERTY, like with both hands, to just feel like a grandma just pointing with my two fingers. Just like, what am I doing here, you know?
No, I understand, definitely.
But with this track in particular, I think it was pretty simple.
Okay.
More or less. I mean, when you're given a project and you're tasked by someone, right? So in this case, it was like, we need a town theme, but these are slime people, right? Yeah. What kind of instruments would they use? Right? What the physicality of, like, what? I don't know, Nickelodeon slime, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not human, it's not natural, right? But they're not like evil.
No.
They're kind of docile, right? Yeah, not necessarily. So, right? You would use adjectives, right?
Yes.
So a film director or video game dev or just storyboard screenwriter or whatever would describe. I would tell them, just describe in words what you're looking for or what instruments you'd like to have in this, right? They would think maybe just wet, right? Maybe something that sounds close to an orchestral instrument, right? So you would make like synth pads, right? Yeah, sound like strings. So the closest thing you could get is like a sawtooth wave. I think I got that right. Yeah, a sawtooth. So a sawtooth wave, and if you mess around with that a little bit, then you could get it to sound like a violin, right?
Okay.
Or a cello, or a bass, right? A bass cello. Or did I say that right? No.
No, maybe not.
Double bass. What
double
the heck?
Bass. Okay.
Come on, I knew that.
We take that again.
And yeah, sometimes it's just, I think the approach, if I recall correctly, was just kind of just creating those pads and just imagining it in my head. I don't think of the orchestra one bit until,
so you kind of put on the layer when I'm writing. You're layering up the music as you move along then, basically.
Right. I already have the idea in my head, right? So I come up with the first section, right? And then when the accordion comes in, that was probably like, okay, you know what? Maybe we need like just a small accordion solo.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the section after that, okay, I need an instrument that will follow up, right? The next section and kind of lead back into a B section, right? A transition kind of theme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, an oboe. An oboe's like, the instrument. It's the sweetest instrument you could do.
Yeah.
Man. John Williams, it was like, I don't know, it was hip to hate him at first because Star Wars, but then you just like I love
Star Wars?
all his music subconsciously. Well, subconsciously, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The love theme from Attack of the Clones, like one of the worst movies in the franchise, but that's arguable now with 7, 8, 9. Anyway, but the love theme in that starts with soft harp, like just low, smooth strings, and then the oboe up at the top. Da, 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 da. Oh my gosh.
Goosebumps.
John Williams, man.
Yeah.
John Williams. Every time I listen to his music, it's goosebumps.
Yeah. No, it
Maybe
is
not
very
Jaws,
emotional,
but-
and I guess it's a little bit of us being kind of nostalgic to the music as well. We know it to some extent. Do you usually tend to get this goosebumps if you listen to something new you haven't heard from him before? Or maybe you listen to everything already. I don't know.
I don't know. I felt like I've listened to everything already. He's now at a point where he's supervising, okay? I don't think he's writing as much. He's just kind of performing in concerts of his own music he wrote last time I checked.
Yeah. No,
I don't know if he's written anything new. I haven't been keeping up to speed on that.
I'm just thinking, like, of course he released more than Star Wars and Jaws and so on.
Oh yeah. Harry Potter, Harry Potter especially.
Yeah.
Schindler's List.
Yeah, yeah.
And some other, like, there are some, names out there or movies that were kind of duds,
Yeah.
I just can't think of them from the top of my head.
There's still music there, so even if we don't know the movies itself, maybe we know the music sometime, and that is something I feel is very special within this medium and this section of understanding and skills, etc. And this is something I kind of meet from time to time just doing this podcast. There's a lot of music, and I was like, I've never played this game, but holy crap, the music is a banger. And then I start playing the game, and sometimes I love the game, sometimes I was like, oh, I will never play this game again, but I will just keep listening to the soundtrack.
And that was Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
That's me. The Xenoblade. I tried. I really did, but the art direction, the music is just banging, dude.
Yeah.
I only got to Gower Plains, but that's like the track.
That game is still unopened.
And then
for
you
me.
start delving deeper into like, whatever. You Will Know Our Names is a big one.
Yeah. No, but it is really
something
great.
melancholy, Mechanic Melancholy. No, I forget. But I only got just so far, and I'm like, this is just mashing A over and over again. I'm sorry. It just didn't. The gameplay didn't interest me.
Yeah.
That's all. The music is banging,
Yes,
dude. It's
definitely,
awesome.
definitely.
But yeah,
But so
that's my example.
yeah. So where we're at right now with this, we had you working solely on music with A Heartbreaking Loss and RPG Symphonics. Some work you had worked together. Artisan Agora was something you kind of worked together, collaborating on a project together with people. So this is kind of your first step, working with others at least. Or did you have anything prior that we did not talk about previously to this?
Ooh, very good question. I'm gonna have to pull up some of my website, but I think if we wanted to go far back, I never posted it.
Yeah.
But I guess my first instance of my first instance of figuring out what a DAW was without anyone telling me or any of my music teachers before college was I got an iPad, probably the worst mistake of my life, but it was the Gen 1 and trying to figure out how to connect that to a keyboard.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, for those of, this generation right now, it was not that easy. It just wasn't. No. You had to get a 30-pin connector converter to USB and then a USB-A to USB-B.
Oh, my God.
And then pray to God that GarageBand would work. Eventually it did.
Oh, my
and
God.
I was able to make a really crappy Pac-Man remix. Oh, man, those samples were just... I remember it like it was yesterday. I need to find it. I know we gave those iPads away now, but...
Yeah.
I think it's just lost to time.
God damn it.
Don't know where it is. I would love to post that on my socials just to show the world that, like, yep, this is where I started.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very educational thing, because usually when we get to know composers, it's usually when they have hit some type of bar, and you feel like, oh, they always been there, because that was the first thing you ever heard about from them. So bringing people a little bit up on par, like, hey, I was crappy too, you can do this. Or maybe like, oh, this was what I did, and this was fun, and this is where I was, and this is where I am now. It's just super interesting.
You know what I think the coolest part is you're following a musician, and then they become professional. Yeah. And I'm going to say it right now, T. Lopes. I remember following him a decade ago with all of his, like, Sonic covers. You know? He did covers of Spring Yard Zone, which was just, oh my gosh. Sega, do better. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, they hired him for good reason.
Exactly.
But yeah, it was Spring Yard Zone and then Splash Hill Zone from Sonic 4. Like, arguably, that was the worst 2D Sonic at the time before Sonic Mania came and showed what, you know, the people can do without Sonic Team, you know? But I was following all of his music, and I think it was just Sonic. I know he did more.
It did more.
But then you start going deeper and deeper and deeper, and then just over time, once I heard that he got his gig for, like, Sonic Mania, I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I was super excited for that
ever.
one. No, in consideration to this as well, something that is really good for composers to do, even if you haven't broken through the bar to get into the industry, doing what you love and kind of pretending or doing like you are the composer for a Sonic game, in this case with T. Lopez, that is a great way to actually prove a point, like, hey, if you're ever doing Sonic, I'm the guy you want for that project. So that is also something that is really important to take into consideration when you want to kind of break into the industry. Just like when you're working with level design, or if you're working as an artist or something, you need to have something in your portfolio that proves the point that you're the right guy for that project. So if you want to get into Sonic games, make freaking Sonic music, and you're gonna be great at it when they see you and hear that music. Just like T. Lopez did his remixes. Just like I'm working, it's like if I want to make levels for Counter-Strike, I need to make levels for Counter-Strike, and then they will pick me up and saying like, hey, this guy can make CS levels, and he's great for this project. Of course, it's going to be. So that is a good pointer to take into consideration. Like we talked in the beginning, are you more this specific one, or are you more like general? Can you do a little bit of everything? Of course, it's going to be a little bit of everything is good to have, because then you're more kind of dynamic in processes and so on. But if you're able to be more kind of the arrowheads, the specialist within understanding what the music is about for a certain genre or for a certain game series, etc., then I think it's easier to be recognized through a niche market, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. That's just how he found it. He just loved writing music for that genre, and the more that he kept pumping and pushing into it, and eventually he got the gig.
Yeah.
I even remember it was, even before Sonic Mania, it was, oh my gosh, it was, what was it, like, some, like, iPhone app game that I never bought. It was, like, Rocket Magnet or something like that, and I could hear a lot of his, like, style in that game, and it was just, it's fun to see, like, someone else make it and then be inspired, like, the exact same way. Which is why if you go to, like, my Bandcamp, I tried doing the same thing. And actually a lot of those tracks, most of them were written around the same time. But one of them, Sky City, that was actually... I came up with the idea on my iPad. Yeah. And it was a different app this time. It was Auxy, I think. Auxy. And that was like, you know, it was a free app. I think it was, kind of sponsored by Apple at that time. And you can make remixes like that, but I just ended up putting a whole song like that through the iPad. I just kept the MIDI data, imported it over, and then, just made a whole entire song out of that.
I am.
And personally, I don't think, like, these tracks in a blue blur nostalgia. Yeah, see, even, like, the title just doesn't roll off the tongue right.
I can hear that.
It was, I appreciate it for what it is. It was, just something to try out new instruments. I'm still kind of early infancy when it came to, running Logic and stuff like that. But I just had to write it down. It wouldn't get out of my head, So I had to write it down. It sounds like a Sonic CD track. Oh, this sounds like a Sonic 3 track, I have to put it down, So I had to put it in an album, which was a whole other thing that Stephen Mellon was talking about. I was like, okay, the legality? Okay. I mean, Sega's very, lenient when it comes to fan-made stuff.
Yes,
so,
yes.
It's like, I gotta... no.
Definitely.
Don't give me hope. Don't give me hope, man.
No,
I really want to.
When it comes to Sega is really like supported to their fan base, because without them, I mean, Sonic would kind of fall flat with everything they released and so on. Even if a Sonic game like Sonic Forces, for example, was a giant flop in the eyes of the community, and well, even from the developer side as well, it didn't sell well. It wasn't a great performing game. But there were so many people making remixes and covers of the music from that game. People were talking about it, having a great time. And there was so much kind of coming from the community and music, which was just inspiring, to be honest. So it's way easier to get into the pants of Sega than it is in Nintendo, because in Nintendo it just loves shutting everything down if it even sounds alike to some extent.
But that's not really stopping people from talking about games.
No.
And their music even. Like, okay, I don't know how I missed the ball on Metroid Prime, but that was probably because I was a baby when I had the GameCube. Okay? Maybe like a 3 or 4-year-old or whatever. I somehow sold Metroid Prime to GameStop.
Okay.
Don't worry though. I got a pre-owned copy for $3, and I got it back. Yeah. But I never really completed it 100% until Metroid Prime Remastered.
Okay.
And my good friend from college is a huge Metroid nerd, so he's all about it. He beat all 3, even the Wii one, even Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. But lo and behold, there's this YouTuber, Cinemax. Shoutouts to Cinemax. And he, found, the original instruments and, processing that was used in Metroid Prime to recreate music for a Metroid in 3D. It's so cool. I really want to build up my audio rack and just get those instruments and just start playing around with it. We need to bring back the 2000s music, because I think that's a treasure trove of samples that we're missing out on.
Definitely. It's magic, in my opinion, the music from that time.
Yeah, but shout outs to Cinemax for finding all that stuff and just analyzing it. It's so
that's
cool.
an insane work.
Just watching your favorite music just being analyzed, from Fendrana Drifts to the Frigate, Oh my gosh, the Frigate. Such beautiful music for a short part of the game,
Yeah.
Man.
It is. But to have some sort of segue here from one airship to another, let's head into the third track of this week. And this is from the second project you've been working on, which is called The Seven Skies. And the track we're going to listen to is Airship. There we have it, Seven Skies Airship, but this is also a track played in the Sky Overworld. And yeah, this game is actually available as like a really kind of basic alpha that people can play. Yeah, for me, I was a little bit unsure exactly where this game is going and heading. There was a lot of different things, like a game style where you jump around in platform, but another one where you basically fly around and shoot with this ship, firing at other monsters and so on. So I was a little bit unsure about the full project and what they're striving to get. So I would like a little bit more from your point of view, joining into the project. How did you get into the project, if we start there?
Yeah, sure. It was a college friend from our Smash group, and he was like, hey, we're working on a game jam or whatever, could you write a song for us? And I'm like, sure. And I did. And then he's like, okay, cool. Thanks for that. Actually, there's this other group that they're looking for a musician, and they're trying to start their own Metroidvania, which is what it was supposed to be. That's what you saw was just like the beginning of an overworld map. And you could travel by like, as you could see, like steampunk ship, and you're just fighting other enemies that could be in the area. You land in certain parts, and then you just go exploring.
Okay.
So Metroidvania, that's why the beginning was like in a 2D style. And then it shows you like how to control the ship, but it's like a scripted sequence where you just like crash land somewhere. I'm trying to remember from the top of my head too, because it's been a couple months since I dabbled in it.
No, I understand. I mean, me coming in, it's like, hey, let's talk about this, and you might not have listened to the soundtrack. I guess you're always working on the next thing. Most of the times, I guess, as a composer, you don't usually go back and listen to the tracks you worked on previously, unless you kind of want to compare, like, where was I and where am I now? Can I do this better? How would I change it, etc.? So, but yeah, considering that we're listening to this track now, the Airship, what are you filled with, to be honest?
What am I filled with?
Yeah, how do you feel listening to the track now? It's been a while.
It's a baby, that's for sure. It's my baby.
Yeah.
I was very proud of it. It was I talked with Chris before this podcast, but I used to be a private music teacher at like a private school, and juggling that on top with private lessons, just kind of like a full-time teacher. But I was just like the one break where I could just sit and focus on, writing a piece of music. Something just came up, and I was like, okay, for those with a keen ear for music, like the first couple notes are kind of inspired by a certain game. I'm not going to tell you. I want you to figure it out. I'll let you figure it out, but I think it was someone in the Discord like posted, it's like, this sounds very close to this, and he posts a link to a video. I'm like, dang it, how did you...
I mean...
You must have a good ear. Dang.
I mean...
But the rest is all original.
Yeah.
But the minute I sat there, I was like, oh, this, like the intro part, that's awesome.
But the intro part there, feels like a classic that we hear in a lot of different tracks. Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah, and for me, listening to that first part, it gave me a little bit Zelda vibe, to be honest. And so on.
I guess, yeah, something like that.
And for me, who lived with the Super Nintendo, it's a little bit of a link to the past for me there. But of course, I've heard so many things where you have that step up. That kind of section always feel like the morning, the sunrise comes up, goes over, and then you're like going off with the rest of
for those music nerds wondering, it's quartal harmony. So instead of like your typical quartal,
okay,
like quarter, a style used in a lot of jazz, like Miles Davis.
Okay.
It's instead of having a C, E, G major chord,
Yeah.
you stack chords by fourth intervals.
And that
So in this case, you would have B, A, B, then E, then A, then D, and you just keep walking up
Okay.
until you get to like a more traditional chord.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that rhythmic vamp,
Do you-
right? Dun 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 dun.
When-
And it
when
keeps
you- when
going.
you're-
That's what has that kind of thing.
Yeah, when you're walking up there, is it usually to meet up with the progression that kind of follows up, or is it kind of going up so you're having like a more drastic change in the progression and everything in order to kind of follow up, or how does those usually pair up to each other? Or maybe it's,
Very kind of open question there, but
for me who doesn't know this, I think is there like a standard is like no, everybody does their own thing.
I think it was just I just came up with it in the moment. Again, that just comes around just messing around.
Yeah.
Right? I had the original theme in my head.
Yeah.
Right? Da 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 da. And I'm like, how can I follow up with that? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It needs something to kind of pick it up to the sky, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so in that kind of direction, it's a very triumphant kind of heroic vamp.
Mm-hmm.
The ship is up in the sky again, you know?
Yeah.
We're not descending or anything. We're soaring through the sky, just looking for the next spot to land.
Yeah, yeah.
Now looking back on it, I'm thinking a lot of the visual stuff. But I think right then and there, it was like, it was a lot more like logical, functional. It's like, okay, we need something to pick this up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then it could just loop without that vamp happening again. Because
Yeah,
that's
okay.
like the intro part.
Mm.
And then, you know,
You have a looping
find the part
after
in that song where you have a loop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking about that. Since this track is 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, I was thinking like, is the world not big enough so the people usually won't be listening to this 2-minute song? But sometimes when I'm talking to composers, there's always an interesting take on this. The length of the songs. Usually, of course, depending on how long the tracks are, it will become more money in the end. Depending on if they want multiple tracks, multiple layers, etc. What's the use for this track? Is it only going to be used in a cutscene, for example, or is it going to yada yada? So it all comes down to payment and length in the end. What is going to be used for? So in this case, when it was started like it did, then I know for now it's just for this track. It's not actually game wise because you have the start and then what will be looping later on.
Mm-hmm.
But in this project, when you were working on the music for the Seven Skies, were you in collaboration here as well, like the previous project with the Creepers?
I think he gave me the director, Mark Haida. I forget his name. I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
Haida or something like that. But Mark, well, he gave me some ideas, like some songs to kind of start off with.
got some references.
Some few references and temp scores that I could barely remember.
Yep.
But I just kind of worked off that. But I had some leniency. I think more leniency than like just kind of ideas. But he was looking for something very orchestral.
Okay.
So
it's down your ballpark.
But also in like, yes, a lot in my ballpark. But here's the twist. He wanted something a little bit more to fit with the art style.
Okay.
Like, in this case, Super Nintendo-y.
Mm-hmm. You have the 16-bit colors.
Right. So if you look on whether it's my SoundCloud or Bandcamp, you will see, of course, the orchestral version. And then I will have the Super Nintendo version alongside it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say this, like, how I learned, I mean, there's a instrument called Super Audio Cart.
Okay.
I think Impact Soundworks has it. And how it treats the instruments, it works more so like a sampling instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of actual, like, synthesis going on, whether you're using a tracker or the actual console itself, actually going real vintage and like taking the actual soundboard and processing music from there.
Mm-hmm.
I just took kind of I guess, the easier route. I am guilty as charged. But
sometimes you have to do that.
Sometimes you have to do it. I mean, a lot of musicians were actually giving it good compliments. I think Grant Kirkhope actually commented on it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, this is a really good, very practical, like, sampling instrument. And that's what I kind of used. I personally think the sounds could have been a little bit better, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it sounds truly authentic. And that's why we'll see in the next one where we talk about the chiptune one that I was using. That uses Super Audio Card a lot, along with some synthesizers I have in my room to get that going. So you could compare from like the 4 tracks that we're listening to, this slow progression of learning how sampling and synthesis works. I learned a lot in my master's program, but it wasn't until I got more and more projects where I was able to get more hands-on. And again, that kind of circles back to what I talked about before. Like, if you're going to learn anything in the industry, I don't know, I learn best just by hands-on and just visual. If I'm right there and you give me the task, I will devote my time, because it's my work. I will devote my time and figure out, how does Fmod work? How does WIs work? How do trackers work, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if I had more games that utilize chiptune synthesis, I could totally make it work.
Yes. No, definitely. I think there is a good chance to kind of head over to the last track of the week as well from here. I know we're since we do love to talk about this subject as well, I think there's a great conversation going on here. We are running out of time as well, so in order to keep that packed and have a little bit more to talk about in the last song, after the last song as well, because we're going to talk a little bit more about you and where you're going as well. And I think that we'll need a little bit more time than we have. So I think it's a great opportunity to go in and listen to the last track of the week then.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
And I just love the naming of this track to begin with. So we're going to listen to, and I guess you call yourself Little when you're online then, because you have Little on SoundCloud?
Yeah. Or CDR Little. That's just a gamer tag that just stuck. Really?
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't think of it. I put my gamer tag like I do my soundtracks, but luckily enough, this one kind of stuck. I will actually talk about that. It's actually an issue a lot of musicians have. We are terrible with titles. Terrible. Just absolutely terrible.
We need to talk about the titles a little bit later, definitely. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so this is the song called High on Blast Processing. High on Blast Processing by Little or Francesco D'Agostino.
Yeah.
No, I feel like
titles in the works.
With this track, it feels like we've been talking so much about orchestral, about talking about different instruments, how you work them through into the computer, working the keyboard, etc. Now it feels like we're going back to basics. Now we're going back to my time here. How does it feel for you working? Of course, orchestral is way older, so going to blast processing with some sort of synthesizer or chip tuning here, it's kind of newer than orchestra ever was.
Right.
But how does it feel progressing like you've done right now? Of course, you had a little bit of a touch into this working with Seven Skies since you did orchestral and a SNES part of it. Working into making like a song yourself, fully original and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What's your process on this and your thoughts?
Okay, this one I will admit, I'll start it off. The theme, I borrowed from my brother, who he played on like this Minecraft DAW, I guess. I don't know, but it's like you could take Minecraft samples and make music out of it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And he too has he hasn't taken a lick of music theory, and I think it just me showing him a few things. He did that all on his own.
Okay.
Just from ear, and he listens to a ton of high adrenaline music. He is
like Psytrance maybe.
Plays no. maybe, but he plays a lot of taiko drumming and Splatoon.
Okay.
And that kind of stuff.
High intense
and
rhythm
it just
things.
Oh yeah. And I'd look at him, I'm sitting there like, okay, you see my icon is like a drummer here, but in the Discord, for those of you who can't see, it's just a silhouette of me playing like my electric drums. He is insanely fast. Oh, man. But he was just like, he gave me like the MIDI data, and he's just like, could you do something better with this? And I just took it and ran. Like the first idea, I took it and ran. So the first theme you hear, right, that's a little bit of him. He created that little phrase. Dun da 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 dun dun da da dun, right? And then I just made the rest.
Yeah.
So when it came to this, it was like, this high adrenaline thing needs synthesis. So I just, again, not in the traditional way of trackers and stuff. I just use Super Audio Cart and scouring the internet for any of the samples I could find that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
Right. So there were like string samples from like Mega Man 7, which I know very well. And I think what's really cool is maybe this is just a music thing, but people can get attached to the samples and games that they're familiar with.
Definitely.
Especially if it's like from Super Nintendo era.
Of course.
You could tell Link to the Past samples from Chrono Trigger or Tales of Mana or something like that, right?
For me, listening to this one, I actually noted down, it sounds like a Mega Man X, but it sounds like a twist to it. But that's because you utilize the speed of it, but I don't feel like you utilized... But now you say you were utilizing the Mega Man 7, so now I kind of understand why I had the Mega Man vibe to it. For me, I'm just like needle in the arm for Mega Man X music, and I just freaking adore it. So for me, listening to this one, I was like, this one is going in.
Cool. Yeah. It's funny. I like the classic games a lot more. I haven't even dabbled in X. But, interesting how you say that, because when I think of Mega Man X, I think of heavy metal grunge.
Yeah. That's a lot of...
But maybe that's just because of X3, and X2 mostly.
I would say, considering the music people, when they do covers of Mega Man X music, is usually metal mixes. And of course, they try to make more rock and roll with the tracks in Mega Man X series than they did with the original. Of course, the whole full Mega Man thing is already a reference to rock and roll, as they are named in Japan as Rock Man.
rock, roll, blues, treble and bass.
Exactly.
You know?
So there's a lot of references already there, so it's no surprise. But for people that did not know it, now you know.
Yeah, it's actually really cool how Capcom did it. It's like every single generation of Mega Man or series is actually, in a way, I don't want to generalize it, but a different genre of music.
Yes.
Like, I think the classic men, maybe except Mega Man 11, but, and Mega Man 11 was all techno and stuff, but a lot of it is, rock and roll. Mega Man, the first Mega Man X, they were pulling off of the original series and trying to come up with something new.
Yes.
Right? Still has rock, but I think it's a lot, heavier. It's heavy rock. And then X2 and X3, the samples, if you listen to, a lot of the tracks, they're a lot, I guess, flatter in tone. And, they feel grungier. I might be screwing this up. Is it Morph Moth, I think? That has a lot of that kind of feel.
I don't have that track specifically in my head right now, but definitely if we listen to
Gravity Beetle. How about Gravity Beetle from X3? That's a little bit more hard rock. That one. Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so many I'm trying to think of, but yeah, I don't play the X series, so. But Battle Network is all techno, almost,
But
and coming from Game Boy sampling and whatnot.
Yeah, but it kind of comes in. Looking at, for me, I actually looked at the anime series as well. But for me, looking at that, it feels like they're playing a video game within that series, with Mega Man being more of a ones and zeros type of character, not the character physically in the world, even though he kind of comes into the physical world at certain times. So I think it kind of makes sense that they kind of evolved into that. For me, as I remembered with the ZX series as well for the DS, that one was also a little bit not that rocky as I remember, but I can be a little bit unsure on that one because I didn't feel too much for that soundtrack, in all honesty.
Right. I only remember the first track, the very first, I don't know, world that you're in. I only looked at that from a distance because I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
You could tell already that I am heavily way too much in the classic games, and I don't branch out.
Yeah.
When I have a game that I really like, I don't. It's hard for me to branch out.
Yeah.
Maybe that It's also just time. I don't have a lot of time these days to just sit down and play. I'd rather be playing games that I could play with other people. Or, like Street Fighter. I don't play Smash anymore, but I'm slowly becoming a casual gamer. I think that's not a good thing. I don't know.
I mean, it's an easier way for you to enjoy gaming still, though. You're putting more and more time into your career now, so of course it's going to be just a natural part. Gaming will kind of take a hit from as much you played before.
You know what? That's fine.
Yes,
and that's why I post a lot of my failures on the internet,
and
on my gaming channel, which, I don't mind it. It's kind of fun. It shows my frustrations, and I get to put it in my, an imaginative level, and I get to use it in Final Cut and stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun doing that, but also at the same time, it's damn, I wish I was better. Just a little. Better than most, but terrible against top players. Ta-da! There you go.
So one thing...
But anyway, back to the track,
So back to the track here. One thing I kind of want to dive into before we start closing this up fully.
Yeah.
High on Blast Processing. I kind of like the name of this. It kind of feels like this song has some sort of story. So when you develop this track, because it's a full original, it's not based, it's not a cover of anything, is there a story within the song as well? Like, it starts out easy, it kind of becomes more hectic in the middle, and it gets really nice melodies to it. Is there a melody that you're thinking about when you make this song, or are you more like, oh, this is great, this process is great?
Well, when I was given this project from my brother, the melody was... It's so cool seeing someone else who doesn't strictly study music theory. He just gets it. And I think that just comes from, he also played instruments too. He learned violin a little bit and then just ended up picking the fiddle. Okay. Now he learns a bit of the mandolin. So he's got a lot of, he's very, instrumentally gifted too. Just like I am. That's nice. He wants to pursue like vet school.
Okay.
So, yeah, completely different, right? So I'm sitting there like, and he wanted me to just go ahead, make something with it. Right? So when I got that melody, I'm like, it's so good. And then, when I decided to keep that tempo that he was doing, and then have the same percussive hits, more or less, and then just ran off with it, right? That part, it's like once you got a good melody like that, and then the second part where I start bringing in that, after the, I guess the, I tried to find like a Euro Euro remix or whatever.
Eurobeat?
That sounds like Initial D or something.
I was thinking that as well, especially genre. When the basses come in slapping.
Yeah. I know those aren't the exact samples.
Yeah.
I'm using a Roland XV5080. Just the virtual instrument. It'd be sick if I had the actual thing.
Yeah.
But later down the road. But just, I try to emulate that genre as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's also just from listening to a ton of just chiptunes on SoundCloud, whatever the feed is,
Yeah.
And that's where I got a lot of, like, just orally listening and orally training to how that genre works. Now, I'm pretty sure, yes. I'm pretty sure those people are using, like, trackers and stuff. And they are way more knowledgeable in that department than I am. But when I came around doing this, it was just sampling and putting it together. And the process is that this one, I was just figuring it out as I went.
Okay.
And just rocking out to it. I'm like, now we need some more, like, cool chords. We need something longer. Right? And then we take that same idea, variate it now, make it more rhythmically fast.
Yeah.
Right? And start going crazy with it. And then the name. I impressed myself on this one. I said before that we're terrible at naming stuff, but I'm looking back at the titles of this. I went from like Console War to Console Wars, but there's a book based on that. Blake J. Harris talking about like the industry of Nintendo and how Sega made the video game industry explode again. Just took Nintendo from 90% market share. Anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. So I just, until it landed on, you know what? This sounds like you're on a high. High on blast processing. I don't know, because Sega did false advertising in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'll just go with that. It sounds kind of sick.
Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Right. Oh boy, bringing that back up again.
It never was released here in Sweden, so I'll just have to steal from US.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that is a good kind of set mark, and we kind of close up from where you went, what you did, and where you're at right now. So in order to just take care of the last minutes we have together here, what's the plans for the future right now? Where do you stand right now, and what do you see in front of you? Do you have any projects that you're working with currently, or are you more in the lookout for interesting projects to work with?
Yeah, right now it's just still looking. No, this is still looking for projects and stuff. Right now, currently as it is, Seven Skies or Glass Cannon Studios, right? It's been kind of dormant recently, and just so you know, for you musicians out there, that will happen, right? It's an indie project, right? I'm also working on an indie film that's still, to this day, trying to find investors. And I found these guys, like, this is a span of, like, 2 years, actually.
Yeah.
2 years coming out of my master's program and finding people, right? It's just been, I've wrote some music, I still have the rights to my music, and then I just kind of move on. And then I find another project, and if that doesn't work, falls out, moves on. There was another project that I was working on, another fan project that it was another project where it was like a composer came in, and it was kind of like he knew how to sample and how to do tracker. He knew how to use a tracker.
Yep.
Words. And he was pumping out a lot of like the what is it? Is it CPS or the Capcom module like sounds and samples? Pulling a lot of that, and he was doing a lot of the work.
Okay.
Right? And so I was like, okay, my sampling chops weren't there yet, so I just kind of left the project on that. I felt like I've done my part, just doing like 1 or 2 tracks and left. It didn't work out. And then the Seven Skies, that was yet another project. It's dormant right now. Still don't know where it's at yet, but
so it might pop
for
up.
someone who's what? Sorry.
So it just might pop up, continue working, and so on. Right now, so people know a little bit more. Yeah, definitely. Go on.
Right. So it's you just keep writing. That's all it is. Just keep writing, and especially for where I'm at right now, Naples, Florida, an illustrious retirement city here in Southwest Florida. There's not a lot to do here. I am in a situation where there are 0 connections.
Okay.
I will have to go out of my way to conventions, which I've done before, or to my school, which I've done already, try to connect with people there. Never visited Berkeley's campus until, last summer. To actually just meet with people and connect with people in person, But those are rare, right? And very expensive, especially, with
going to
today's economy here in the States. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing that you could do is you just keep writing. You will have burnouts, and they will come, right? But how fast can you pick back up on your feet and then just keep going, right?
Definitely.
You can't soon, if you get lucky and you land it, then you can devote your entire life to music. And this is where I'm at right now, right? Because I didn't know what to do in college. I just wanted to do music just to get better at it, for the sake of learning, And I'm still writing whatever comes into my head.
Yeah.
So still enjoy the life that you're at. Just keep finding new things to do. And then from time to time, always come back and just spend time, put it down, and create. Eventually, something will pop up.
Definitely. I think most of the situations, or most of the time when we talk to composer, hearing behind the scenes, it's usually like, I was just creating music all the time. In the end, someone of importance noticed it, loved it, and said, hey, come work for us. Or they're working by themselves as a freelance and doing their own kind of shtick with sound design and music on top of that. But basically, where you're at right now is, well, your schedule is hopefully open for a little bit of work. If somebody listening to this episode and loved the music that they heard, maybe it fits your project, no matter what type of project it is. I mean, get in contact with Francesco and see what can be done. And you'll take it from there. So, in case people want to get in contact with you, Francesco, where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I have all my socials. I've just got, just the basic stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Against my will, begrudgingly, TikTok. Yeah, I do it. But it's there. I mean, you just make reels and stuff, and you just post there. And SoundCloud. So I have all of that. All my tracks are on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. Hopefully later down the line I'll be able to put Spotify up too. But just those 2 big things. You can go to my main website at francescodagostinomusic.com. Make sure there's no apostrophe in there. But you can find me there, or just search Francesco D'Agostino Music on any of the social media platforms, and you'll be able to find me there.
And of course, just to make it simpler, if people are unable to get this, everything with links and everything will be in the main post at videospelsklubben.se as well. So it will be easy to find the links to where they can find you as well.
Great. Awesome.
No, definitely. Thank you so much for joining. It was amazing having you here, talking a little bit about your journey so far. And I'm definitely looking forward to see where you end up next, to be honest. I think you have a lot of potential. You sound very passionate about your craft, which I always love. I really adore passionate people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was, you know, I'm very humbled that you reached out to me, you know, and to be on this podcast. It's great talking to someone else who is as knowledgeable about the industry as I am.
Mm-hmm. No, it's super awesome. I think it gives a great opportunity for my listeners to enjoy this situation as well, educate themselves a little bit of how hard it actually is to become a composer in the modern times as well. So I think it gives a great kind of spectrum that is great to have, especially for new composers and people interested in breaking into the industry as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, do you have any final words right now you want to tell if you have some spotlight time now?
Oh, goodness, the spotlight's on me again. Oh, dear. This is why I like working behind the scenes, and that's what a lot of music is.
Yeah.
You know, and...
Don't forget to tie your shoelaces,
you know, the
right?
final words? Yeah, don't forget to tie your shoelaces. Yeah, like I said before, what keeps me going is just keep writing. You know, if you've got the talent, you've got the passion for it, just keep going for it. But don't stretch yourself out so thin that you're desperate. It's just like a relationship. It's just relationships at the end of the day. It's like dating. No, just write, you know, live life, you know, and just keep writing, keep posting, and it'll eventually come. That's how I keep my hopes up, you know.
Awesome.
You gotta keep. There was a saying that I've heard. It was, there were two people behind bars. One looked at the mud while the other looked at the stars. So no matter what position you're in, what education you're in, whether you have music theory or not, whether you know how to play piano or only just two notes, whether you're good at, like, and only good at doing tracker stuff, or you're completely orchestral and you just don't know a lick of how to make NES chiptunes, right? Just create and keep your head up at the stars, but your feet on the ground.
Yeah, that's a beautiful saying. In honest, I've never heard about that one before, but I really like the metaphor of that one. It's really nice. So yeah, it is time for me to close down the episode with those words then. So, other episodes of Gameable Audio, you find that on our homepage, videospelsklubben.se, Spotify, or in your closest podcast app. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias, either on Facebook or Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio, give that a follow, give a comment on what you liked in the episode, or if you have any other suggestions on other composers or artists that you would like to hear, or themes in the episodes. You can also support this podcast for future content and quality upgrades, but most of all, also for the future composers. So think about that and become a Patreon. Our current awesome Patreon backers that we have today is Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. And all the links of where you can find Francesco, also to all his music, so you can support him to also buy this music if you enjoyed it. You will find all those in the main post at videospelsklubben.se. So for the next episode, the theme is going to be a little bit more about sadness. We're going to talk about sorrow in music. So just shape up for the next episode. Buckle up all those hugs and pillows and everything you kind of would like to have close to you when we're talking about this subject, because we're going into the more melancholic sorrowness of tracks and games, and I'm just super excited for this. I'm not too fond of the subject itself myself. I love the happiness part of it, so it's gonna be so interesting, me meeting my yang to my yin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would recommend not going depressed to something like this. I come with a positive attitude, just saying.
I love it.
Become an optimist when watching and listening to this podcast.
I love it. But yeah, so with that said, everybody, have a good one, and see you all guys next time.